Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Week 20 is about to get underway. Yes, many of you are either in the playoffs or just about to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think I've got exciting. 1 week left in a lot of my leagues. And yeah, I'm entering playoffs this week in one of them.
In one of my leagues, I have 2 weeks. In another, I have one. Most of them are one, and then I have one that's 2 weeks. I'm very excited, and I also have a lot of injuries, and I'm scared. But it's going to be okay because I still haven't dropped Bob.
Oh, good for you, I guess.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, so moving into the week review, my first bit here, I know we're recording this Saturday night, so this is fresh in everyone's mind and actually just happened, but there was an emergency goalie situation. And somehow, I thought the emergency goalie would steal the show, but instead, it was the Leafs' inability to score, rather, that took over everything. I mean, he got a win. Awesome for him. But Leafs, what are you doing? Tanking. And this was a huge game. Carolina's not going to, like you said earlier, we were talking about this offline. Carolina's not going to jump them in the playoff spot. But still, they are making life difficult for themselves.
Did he get credited with the win? I don't know if he was in for the go-ahead goal.
I don't think
he was. I think they were up by 4 before he came in, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were up by 3 when he comes in. Yeah. So he was not on the ice for that fourth goal, so the win is actually going to go to Reimer.
Right.
1 save, 1 win.
Will it go to Reimer? Or Mrazek? Was Mrazek in for that?
Yeah, whoever was in for that. Well,
Mrazek. It's going to be Mrazek's, I think. Because, he came in. He came in the middle of the... Yeah. There's going to be Mrazek's win, I think.
Yeah. Unless...
Yeah, because they scored their 4 in the second, so...
It did not go to Mrazek, actually, because I'm playing someone with Mrazek, and he did not get credit with the win, unless he'll end up getting credit with the win later.
I assume later.
Yeah, that would make the most sense. Anyways, what is your next bit here in the week review?
So we've had Tyler Toffoli and Ondrej Kase get moved in this last week. As far as notable players, you can say Martinez too, but for fantasy relevance, it doesn't really matter that much. I just want to say, don't overreact too much to these moves. You want to make sure that even if a player is getting moved to a better team, that they're getting good deployment before you really buy in on them. Kasha is the more prominent example, I think, because you can pretty well assume that he's not going to be getting top power play. It's not to say that he's going to be worthless, but I certainly wouldn't be immediately picking him up, which seems to be a pretty common theme that I've seen in leagues and in questions. People just immediately grabbing Kasha because he's on the Bruins now. The Foley situation is actually much better, especially for the unfortunate situation of Besser essentially being out for fantasy season. Gives him that leg up because now we know he's going to be top power play, and he's playing. I thought for sure he was going to be playing with Horvat and Pearson, given his history with Pearson on the Kings. But with Besser out, he's getting that JT Miller Pedersen line, which is about as good as you can get for Toffoli. So I like him a lot more as far as somebody that I would pick up pretty quickly. But Kasha, just with these trades, and I'm sure we're going to see a few more of them. Again, we're recording this on Saturday night, so trade deadline is Monday. I think we're going to see a few more pieces move here and there. Just make sure that the player is actually being put in a position to succeed as opposed to just moving to a team that's better. Just because they're on a better team doesn't necessarily mean they themselves will improve from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we've seen so many people start to increase in ownership, and a lot of it is because right now the teams that are making moves are the good teams.
Coleman is a good example of this, actually.
Yes. Like we say on the podcast, well, I guess I say, people like to touch nice things, and people like to grab players just because of the team that they're on, and that is the wrong approach. My next bit here in the week review, and this was just something that we talked about. And you know what? Actually, before I move into mine, really quick, I think actually for Monday, pay attention to our Twitter or to YouTube. And I think we're going to do some kind of live stream. Brandon might not be able to, but I'm going to try at least to do some kind of live stream on the trade deadline day. We'll stream for a while, take fantasy hockey questions, can react to trades in real time, that sort of thing. Should be fun. Maybe if you get bored with TSN, there's so many dead moments, come over and talk fantasy hockey. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, now moving on to my bit here on the week review, and it's about Carter Hart. We were talking about this on Sit Start Saturdays, and I hadn't realized just how much worse Carter Hart is when he's away.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty insane.
He's really good at home and really not good away for some reason.
It's almost bad enough that I would go going forward, I would say bench on the road, play at home. It's what it feels like, at least. I mean, listen to these stats. For those that don't know what's going on right now with Carter Hart's home and away situation. At home, he's played 19 games, has 15 wins, 2 losses, and 2 overtime losses. In that stretch is a .943 save percentage, a .162 goals against average. And then you go to the road, and he has 17 games played, almost same amount, 3 wins only, 10 losses, 1 overtime loss, an .855 save percentage, and a .388 goals against average.
Well,
that is
maybe you better hope they get home ice advantage in the playoffs.
Yes, I know. Seriously, you better fight so hard for home ice advantage, because that's going to be huge for Carter Hart. Apparently, dealing with some kind of away voodoo.
Yeah, weird. All right, my next bit is so we've talked about the situation, the power play situation in Buffalo a few times on the show, about what happens with Jeff Skinner upon his return, and what has happened is nothing. He stayed power play 2. He didn't find his way back on power play 1. Olofsson's back now. You know, the whole core of who you'd expect to be power play relevant is healthy in Buffalo again. And what we're seeing is something that I kind of thought might continue to happen with both of the Rasmuses on top power play. That's Ristolainen and Dahlin are both power play 1. And Ristolainen actually got 3 power play points in his last 3 or 4 games. So I think that bodes well for him. That was kind of like the biggest concern I had with Ristolainen going into this season is he's going to lose that little bit of offensive upside he had with the power play. And it's going to drop him from being a 40 to 45 point defenseman to something below that. Still definitely serviceable in full Cats leagues because he hits and he shoots and he blocks and all that good stuff. And he gets PIMs as well. But it made him just a little bit less viable in a lot of other leagues. Seeing him be able to get that top power play, first of all, solidifies the fact that Skinner is just not worth holding on to in just about any league. But it gives him that little bit of a boost again. I don't know. You know, we thought for sure at the beginning of the season that Risto is going to get traded. It still seems like the right move for the organization. I don't know if it'll happen now, but I don't know if they're trying to showcase him or what the deal is. But I think it's probably the best solution they have if they're not going to trust Skinner, is to just have Ristolainen play as a shooter on the power play, basically, if he's even shooting.
You always did like him as more of a forward.
I liked him.
You said that once.
Yeah, I said if they're going to play them both on the, I said just play him, up on the sidewalls and play Dahlin as the QB, which I don't know.
Apparently, it's what's kind of happened.
Apparently,
they switch it off. It doesn't seem like there's really a strict agenda back there on defense. Now, do you have any more week reviews?
Yeah, I got one more.
Okay, go for it.
Getting a random hat trick shouldn't make you think a player's value has suddenly increased quite a bit. Jared Spurgeon is the player I'm talking about here. Got a hat trick in, I think it was a Thursday or Friday. I think it was Friday, actually. And I started getting some questions on him. And Spurgeon is still just going to be Spurgeon. He's like a whatever, not the highest point upside guy, but has he winds up being like a streamer value defenseman to me for the most part. He's got some upside, but the ceiling's not very high. The floor's fairly high, actually. So he's I don't know. He's consistently not worth it for the most part. I don't think that the fact that he wound up getting this rando hat trick is going to make any difference in how I view him. He's still just going to be the same Jared Spurgeon he's always been, which is somebody that in deep leagues, I usually wind up somebody should have him, but in shallower leagues, I feel like he winds up being overowned.
That sounds about right. And now you can move into everyone's favorite part of this episode. And that's when you tell them all the players that are dead.
Yep.
Maybe because of us, maybe not.
And there's more being added to this list as this day goes on. This night goes
on.
Cam Fowler is day-to-day with lower body injury. Jacob Chychrun is day-to-day with lower body injury. Mikko Rantanen is out weeks with an upper body injury. I assume, I don't know. I don't know what that means, but it's I feel like he's going to be the player this season. There's always like one or two of these players that you don't know whether you should eat a dead spot for them if you don't have room on your IRs or you don't have an IR or something. And I think this season is going to be Rantanen, where you just don't know if he's going to come back. Rantanen and Tarasenko right now are the two that are like, they could, and if they do, they're immediately valuable. But do you eat a dead spot for that? Do you risk the entire playoff run for it? I've actually lost playoffs doing that before. Way back in the day with Johan Franzen. It's the first time that happened to me. Anyway, Philip Grubauer is out indefinitely with lower body injury. So you should be looking at Francouz as a possibly long-term, but definitely short-term idea for a team that's looking for a goalie. Oliver Bjorkstrand is out for the season with an ankle injury. RIP. Had to happen, I guess. Talked about him too much. Philip Hronik is day-to-day with an upper body injury. Oscar Klefbom is week-to-week with a shoulder injury. I think it was 2 to 3 for him. And then this new slew of injuries that happened tonight, there actually may be more than this. We've got James Reimer day-to-day. I don't know why. Peter Mrazek day-to-day. I'm assuming because of the head contact, but I'm not. Who knows? And then Thomas Chabot is day-to-day with what I think is a lower body injury, but I guess it doesn't really matter. And that's it for the outgoing players, actually. As far as coming back, we've got Ryan Ellis, who I swear people love him more than like much more offensively utilized defenseman for some reason. I hear about Ellis more than I hear about a lot of kind of in better position defensemen. I don't know why that is. Evgeny Kuznetsov returned and actually wound up on top line, which I didn't see coming. So he's been playing with Ovi and Wilson, at least according to Daily Faceoff. I didn't check the actual lines for today, but it seems like a weird thing to get wrong. So I'm going to assume that actually happened. Tony DeAngelo returned. We've got Alexander Radulov returning with Pavelski. Now they're both on the third line, the third line. So I don't know, man. As long as Dallas wins, I guess it doesn't matter. But boy, it's just hard to rely on them for fantasy for the most part. And then we've got Shea Weber returning. So his season officially ended, and then he was resurrected by his guardian angel or something. And he's back to being Shea Weber, the guy that has multiple times now seemed like he was going to retire due to injury. And just well, he's back earlier than expected. And that's it. That's the injury report.
Your commentary is getting better and better each time.
I try to, instead of only talking about the returners, I'll just go into detail on the ones that have a story about them, or at least that I think has one.
You had more stories than I believed, and I got to hear the name Johan Franzen. That's one I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, that was the first league I ever played in. Was it? Maybe it was. This was like 8 years ago or something. And he was hurt through playoffs, and they kept saying, "Oh, he'll be back next game. He'll be back next game." And he just never was. And I lost by 1 power play point. And I was like, God. And that was in the finals.
That happened to me either last year or the year before in the finals with you. I think maybe it was Fleury.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if he was going to play because he had a kid or something had happened. He was gone. I didn't know if he was going to play. Ended up losing a roster spot. He ended up getting the W, and I ended up losing by like 1 or 2, which Fleury would have gotten me.
Yep.
Yeah. I hate when that happens. So anyways, moving into drop candidates here, what you actually said about Grubauer, actually, I have a little bit of I follow that up in long-term targets. So for drop candidates, my first one here is going to be Adam Fox on the New York Rangers defenseman. Shockingly, still 47% owned, and I'm not really sure why. He hasn't gotten points in a long time. Finally got a point the other night, but his minutes are completely inconsistent. Not really seeing any power play time. There's not that great of peripherals, if any. I don't understand why Adam Fox is still 47% owned. I think I think it has to do with the Rangers doing well. Or people holding on in hope that what happened earlier in the season could happen again to him. And I don't think any of those are the case. I think Tony DeAngelo is kind of running away with this. The only way I could see Adam Fox being worth it, and even then 47% is questionable, is if they decide to trade Tony DeAngelo. But even then, 47% feels really high for a guy not getting points, not getting peripherals, and minutes being crazy inconsistent.
Well, the interesting bit about what you just mentioned there is even if they traded DeAngelo, it's not like they were playing Fox on top power play when DeAngelo was injured or anything. So I'm not sure it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to get top power play. They were giving it to Trouba, which is totally viable. Although it looks like they were paired up at least for a good chunk of it. So who knows? But
yeah, I would imagine that he wouldn't get consistent top power play time. They might try
yeah,
him out there. They might switch out to Truba, but either way, even then, like you're holding out again on a hope that someone gets traded, and I personally don't like to do that.
yep. My first one is Zach Sanford, actually, and I'm only mentioning him here because he was one of the most picked up players after his 4-goal game, and then he followed up with another goal, and heads started flying. Everybody started losing their minds. Center left wing, 24%. I think a lot of people have gotten the message already and are starting to drop him, but he is not to be relied on long term. It's fun while it lasted. You don't need to hold on to him. Even the hits have come down. So it's I don't know what happened to him, but he was super into it for a couple of weeks there, and yeah, he's back to being Zach Sanford, the guy that you never hear about in fantasy.
Yep, especially with the shots falling off, just not as appealing anymore. My next one here is actually Ilya Kovalchuk, left wing, right wing, 25% owned. Did get a point tonight in the Montreal versus Ottawa game, but the thing is, his minutes have been dipping, and he hasn't been as consistent of a shooter. And for me, the thing with a guy like Ilya Kovalchuk is that while I do think he's going to do better, I don't think he's worth holding on to, because until he does, I don't think anyone's going to pick him up. I've dropped him in 3 leagues now, and he hasn't been picked up in any. So I think you're safe to drop Kovalchuk, especially because going into playoffs here soon, Montreal does not have that great of a schedule. And so Ilya Kovalchuk would have to do significantly better to earn a spot on your roster, in my opinion.
Yeah. My next one is a player that I'm surprised is this highly owned at this point, and that's Matt Duchene, center right wing, 55%. His ice time has been real all over the place. I mean, he's played some very low minute games, and even in the sub 10 minute area. So it just 55% is a high number of ownership for a player like Duchene that doesn't really give you much beyond points, and the points aren't there. You know, I've heard a lot of people asking about dropping Philip Forsberg or Victor Arvidsson or a bunch of other of these, the top 6 of Nashville. And yet I feel like I'm not hearing much about Duchene. None of you guys own Duchene, and everybody has Arvidsson and Forsberg and whatever. I don't know. But for some reason, Duchene doesn't come up, and I feel like I'd have Forsberg over Duchene. I don't know about Arvidsson at this point, but
yeah, Arvidsson I think is a drop.
Yeah,
safe
I think
drop.
they both are.
But yeah, I mean, Duchene, I agree with you. I'm shocked by the lack of Duchene questions that I get. I actually think I've seen in the last 2 weeks or so more questions about picking up Duchene than dropping Duchene.
Yeah.
And maybe the only thing here, and again, the ownership is way too high for this, but I think one big factor is face-off wins. But I don't think a big chunk of you use face-off wins. So
for what it's worth, again, recording Saturday night, he is in the middle of overtime against Columbus, and it has 1 shot, 1 block, and that's it.
Not great.
Yeah.
Not great at all. My last one here is someone that you talked about a little bit in the week review. Blake Coleman, left wing, right wing, 64% owned. Can you believe that his percentage increased?
Yeah, I can. I can definitely believe that.
I can. But like, come on. So already
the second that trade was announced, I was like, this is a player that's going to do worse, and his ownership's going to increase significantly.
Yes. He's a guy that I would have immediately tried to shop because he has the Tampa Bay Lightning name attached to him now. You know?
Yep.
So, and here's a crazy thing. His offensive zone start percentage has already dropped from what it was in New Jersey. So he's being used more defensively.
And he was already low there, too.
And he's already low, exactly. And his minutes have dipped by a whole 2. So he was averaging 17 minutes a game in Jersey. And in his first 2 games, he's averaged 15 minutes. So a big decrease there, which for a peripheral guy like Coleman to be that elite peripheral guy, you need minutes. And so if he starts to see less minutes, becomes way less valuable. And in my opinion, right now, if you're at the top of the table and can afford it and wait a little bit, maybe it's worth waiting just to see if the peripherals stick around. But if you're fighting for a playoff spot, Blake Coleman's upside is just not there anymore.
Yep. All right, my last one is actually another. I feel like the Canadians are going to be on this quite a bit going forward, just because their schedule's not so good in the playoffs. So I'm giving them a very short leash, and that's Nick Suzuki, center left wing, 31%. Is a player we talked about quite a few times on the show as a pickup candidate, and the problem is now I don't want to hold on to somebody that is not going to give me a benefit in playoffs. Like at best, they have a mediocre schedule if they don't screw up your your bench situation. At worst, they just either you're going to be benching Suzuki anyway, or you're going to be benching somebody else. And if you're benching somebody else, I just don't know that. I would just rather have whatever the replacement you'd be putting in for him is, plus a handful of other starts from dropping Suzuki for somebody that has a better schedule or just from a streamer spot. So couple that with the fact that his minutes have been just all over the place, consistently lower, but also just kind of random. It's a lot of Montreal is just kind of hard to recommend at the moment.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, it's tough. You look at like a guy like Armia, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of moving out of relevance at the moment. Peripherals aren't as hot, and the points kind of aren't coming either. So a lot of Montreal guys for me right now that I have are getting really short leashes.
The only forward on Montreal I'd want is Brendan Gallagher, and that's on a Cats league, not in a points league, maybe. Well, yes, even in a points league, I probably would still have him just because he shoots so friggin' much. But
I know if you have any points for shots, he's a pretty good, like, average guy at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've done drop, you have no more drop candidates?
Nope.
Okay, so let's move into long-term targets now and talk about people you should be picking up long-term. I have 2 goaltenders. I'm going to take one at a time because I think you might have one. My first one is Igor Shesterkin.
Mm-hmm.
New York Rangers, 44%. This dude is unreal. There's a few things that I like a lot about Shesterkin is he faces such a high volume of shots. It's almost a no-brainer that he's going to have a pretty decent save percentage. It's very similar to Georgiev back in the day. And he looks like he's going to be getting majority starts. Nothing makes sense in New York right now, and they just keep on winning behind Shesterkin. Or in front of Shesterkin, they're killing it. And Shesterkin's, he looks so good. He is everything that was promised and more to the Rangers. But to me, he's a real deal for long-term. If you need a goaltender, and I think you'll get away with it in any type of league. He seems awesome.
Yeah, I'm kind of turning the corner on him a little bit, but I do think there's a decent chance that he just winds up in a pretty bad situation. I just noticed that Vasilevsky gave up 7 goals against the Coyotes tonight. Oh my God. What is going on?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
It's a good thing that doesn't matter that much to me.
But
my first one here is Kevin Fiala. Left wing, right wing, 38%. He's been really good. And I think that considering Minnesota actually has a pretty okay playoff schedule, like he fits in with a couple of my teams, actually. So he's a guy that I've been kind of having on my radar. He's shooting a lot. His minutes have stayed up. I kind of expect that to continue going forward. So 38% is actually a little higher than I expected him to be, but I still think that he has a place on a lot of teams, at least to give a trial run to. And if he, falls back down to what we've expected from, or come to expect at this point from Fiala for a long time now, then you can drop him. But if he is able to convert some of this ice time and shot production into more points like he had in the recent past, he's worth a look for sure.
Yeah, I knew you were going to have Fiala. His shot production has been off the charts.
I wanted to
now
keep
that his minutes are up,
all my players from last week's long term. Last week I had Yamamoto, Kubalik, and Burakovsky.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Yamamoto.
They're all still there.
Yeah, Yamamoto is still just as relevant, if not, I think maybe the best pickup. Kubalik is a great one if you can keep that top power play. To me, year's was
Yamamoto and Burakovsky are like the recent line change or position change or whatever you want to call it pickups that are the most exciting to me.
Yeah, those are, and I didn't want to bring them up again because we've talked about them so much already in the past week and weekend. Like I didn't want to do it. But my next one here is a guy that you really like on the Colorado Avalanche, and that's Pavel Francouz. Just got signed to a new 2-year extension.
Yeah, I got him here.
Yep, 44% owned.
I couldn't believe his extension was 2 years at $2 million. It's just,
I can't believe that either. That's
I get it, but it's good Lord, like that
he
is
probably just wants security more than anything.
I know, but like. Somebody would have paid that on better than that on the off season, but I don't know. Maybe not. I guess people get spooked by players that don't have established American careers yet. So
maybe he just really likes Colorado Avalanche. Maybe he likes living in Colorado.
Yeah, maybe.
Potential. Maybe.
They got either way. Anyways, they got a steal. I think.
Yeah, and for fantasy, Francouz is a great pickup because we have no idea how long Grubauer is going to be out, and like Brandon said, like waiting on these kinds of injuries is awful. I just hoping it's not fun. And so I, for example, already put Grubauer on my IR plus. He'd probably be one of the first people I'd let go, to be honest, if it came to it. There's been so many injuries. You're going to have to free up some IR plus potentially, or IR plus slots potentially. Grubauer's up there for me. So Francouz is, in my opinion, the second best pickup to Igor Shesterkin, only because I think Shesterkin gets more starts than Francouz rest of season.
I would have Francouz over Shesterkin just because I think there's a decent chance that the Rangers come back to what they're supposed to be doing. The man's not Superman. He's not an actual brick wall.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I mean, can someone confirm that? I think I took a look at him last night and he looked like a brick wall. A literal brick wall.
He's going to have a bad game eventually.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens after that.
It'll probably be in like 20 years when he's won a few cups and a few Vezinas.
Yeah. He did have a 44 save game against San Jose tonight.
Yes, he did. He keeps it. That's what I'm saying. He faces so many shots. I mean, he'd have to have like a 4.00 goals against average to get to 9.0. Like, I think he can do that.
Well, yeah, but I don't think volume of shots means higher save percentage unless they're getting.
Oh, it does.
It doesn't. That's just false. It doesn't.
Varlamov is famous for that too.
That's just false.
To be fair, it depends on the quality of the shot.
Yeah,
if
it's not telling you anything. If volume doesn't tell you anything, it's about shot quality.
That's fair.
But
I walk it back.
Okay, thank God. I don't know how long that was going to go on. All right, I had Francouz as well, so I've got one left, and that's Eric Chernykh. This is obviously for Bangers Leagues. If you have not heard that name, you are not in a Bangers League, or you're losing the Bangers League, probably. But
yes.
Chernykh is somebody we've talked about on the show a few times. We talked about a lot at the end of last season and at the beginning of this season. And then he kind of had like a mediocre season, honestly, so far, until recently. Since basically, he's day to day. Killed him. He's already dead. Forget it.
You killed him on air.
Yeah, he died in this game sometime between when I put his name down here. This is, if any of you guys have ever watched or read Death Note, our scripts are Death Note. Anybody we put in here dies. We should just stop writing names down.
I know. We should just talk about them in weird ways.
Read their names backwards or something. Anyway,
with
forget that, I guess. He's no longer a long-term pickup if he's going to be out.
Oh, man, that means I lost another player in my keeper league, too. Man, that sucks. Okay, my next one here is a guy who recently got traded from a star-studded city to a city with whales on their shirts. Left wing, right wing, 43% owned. Do you know who that is?
What, Wales?
Can you guess? With Wales.
No.
It's Tyler Toffoli. It's the Canucks. They have whales. Man, details, little details. That's what makes the show good. Tyler Toffoli, fantastic pickup.
Don't make me think on a Saturday night.
You can think on a Saturday night. We're both thinking. Well, I don't know. I try to think. Apparently, according to you, my thoughts don't really do much. So I try to limit them. Tyler Toffoli has a lot of minutes. He's getting top power play at the moment. He's the Besser replacement. He has another assist at the moment of recording this. He's a monster. Tyler Toffoli is really good. And I think he fits the Vancouver system perfectly, if not to a T like that. He is a perfect replacement for Besser. So when it comes to Toffoli, I think of all the people that got traded, especially recently, right? Blake Coleman, Zucker, Toffoli, those guys. Toffoli's my favorite by a mile. Like I don't even think it's close. More than Kasha as well. Like the situation Toffoli's in is incredible.
Yeah, as far as recent trades, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it reminds me kind of JT Miller. Like I think he has that same potential, which sounds crazy, but I think maybe imagine a little bit less with more shots, less hits, right? Less rounded out, but I think his point production could go way, way up.
Yeah, I would expect it to actually. From where he was. Okay, let's move into. Oh wait, I'm not doing this. You're the one that needs to move us into the week preview because you took my Francouz.
Oh, you're right. I did take Francouz. Took your sweet Francouz. Okay, moving into the week preview. Here is the schedules. The teams with 4 games are going to be Columbus, Minnesota, New York Rangers, Calgary Flames, Florida Panthers, New Jersey Devils, Ottawa Senators, and the Vancouver Canucks. Look at that. Good time to pick up Tyler Toffoli for this next week. And teams with 2 games are going to be the Arizona Coyotes, and that is it. Teams that play 3 off nights are going to be Columbus and the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's it. Nada más. So with that knowledge in mind, now moving into short-term targets, I've got to start with the one that whenever Vegas has 3 off nights, there's one player you always want on your team if you're in a Bangers league, and that's Ryan Reeves. He gets you hits. 11% owned. He's been hitting a lot recently. I like his schedule this week.
Got an assist tonight.
Gets seen on a point. Look at that. Sometimes gets points. Reeves is the only one we've ever talked about, never killed, and actually improve all the time.
Yeah. He's on a 2-game point streak. How about that?
Strangely, Ryan Reeves is coming up to the task right before the best week to stream him. I mean, if anyone listens to the podcast, it's definitely Ryan Reeves, and I appreciate you for it, Reeves, if you're listening.
He's listening.
He's absolutely listening. He listens to us pre-game while he's warming up.
My first one is Nick Foligno over in Columbus. Center, left wing, right wing, 25%.
Yep,
obviously, has that great schedule. I mean, he gets to play Minnesota and Vancouver when they're tired. And not only that, okay, so Friday and Sunday for Columbus are at home rested against a tired Minnesota, and then at home rested against a tired Vancouver. So they get to play tired traveling teams twice. It'll be good. Although
fun.
They do return the favor to Minnesota here, where they have to do a tired traveling game at Minnesota on Tuesday. But I mean, whatever, it's fine. Anyway, yeah, Nick Foligno, center, left wing, right wing, 25%. Good Bangos. That's it. Good Bangos. Power play 1.
Yeah, I like Nick Foligno. He's
good enough.
I had him on my list
basically.
As well. Yeah, and that center, left wing, right wing means you probably have room for him as well in that one non-off night that they play.
Yeah.
And then my next one here is actually Boone Jenner, same team. Center, left wing, 26% owned. Bangos alone. Like, he's not worth anything else. He's worth Bangos, and that's about it. So that's what I'd pay attention to. I mean, especially hits and shots. He's been doing really well in that. Secretly was around like 50, one of the top 100, if I remember correctly, in the last 14 days or so. If I cherry pick stats, he's been pretty off in the last 7. But last 14 days, we're going to focus on that here. He's doing well across that. So a good Bangers option, in my opinion, along with Nick Foligno.
Yeah. My next one here is from the Vegas Golden Knights, Paul Stastny. Center, 24%. Pretty low owned considering how well he's been playing lately. Great ad for points leagues. I mean, I guess he hasn't been fantastic or anything, but he's good enough that I'm surprised he's only 24%. He's centering that line with Pacioretty and Stone, and on the power play with them. So he's in a pretty good situation. Again, they've got the 3 off nights, so it's gonna be hard to find. Oh no, they changed the line. He's with Marchessault and Riley Smith now, but on the top power play instead of William Karlsson. So still in good shape. But because of that great off-night schedule and the fact that next week is pretty hard to stream, I think he's going to be one of the better options as far as additional starts.
Another guy that we always mention when they have a decent schedule is Mikael Backlund, center right wing, 25% owned. He has 4 games, I think only 2 off nights for the Calgary Flames this week. But if you can fit him in center right wing, so at least he has that right wing option, he's been playing really well. He's been getting way more consistent minutes. As the problem with guys like Mikael Backlund and others is that we've seen Calgary's shooting percentage be extremely low this season. And so a lot of these depth guys are hurting from that. And so we may see right now, if the on-ice shooting percentage is increasing kind of around for the Calgary Flames, then we could see guys like Mikael Backlund start to increase a little bit and get a lot better. I really like what he's been doing. So he's a pretty good pickup in my opinion this week.
Yep. My next one here is actually, it would be Fiala, but I already mentioned him. So I'm going to mention another player on the Wild in Zach Parise. He's always like another player that I'm sort of looking at when there's a good schedule to be had for Minnesota. They don't have like the world's best schedule or anything, but it's not that bad. And if you can fit him in on Thursday, they do get that Detroit game, which anytime you're playing Detroit, it's good news. And then they do the Friday, Sunday stuff. So maybe it's somebody that you pick up on Thursday as opposed to Tuesday, and work your way that way. But if you do get him on Tuesday and can fit him in somehow, You'll also be playing against a tired traveling Blue Jackets team. So,
and you do not want that.
yeah,
If you're the Blue Jackets.
If you're the Blue Jackets, yeah.
There you go. So
I've
that
got one
is
less
your
one.
week. You've got one more. Okay,
I got one
no
more.
signing out. No
I've got
signing out yet.
another Blue Jacket.
Ooh,
David Savard. Defense.
That's not
6%.
a name I expected.
No, he's very good in bangos lately, and he's been getting power play 2 time. So there's a little bit of point upside there, but this is mostly a banger league play, especially if you have blocks. He just fills the stat sheet pretty well for a guy that's 6% owned. Makes for good
and if
streaming.
you're picking him up that deep, like a 5% owned guy, also normally if you're picking him up for pure bangos, it's a pretty deep league probably. In that situation too, like that's a pretty good upside that he's at least power play 2. I know we usually don't give power play 2 much credit, but when you're a guy just for bangos, it's better than nothing. That's pretty much the way we look at it. So there you go. So that now is the week 20 preview. Now again, pay attention. The trade deadline should be happening. We'll do some kind of trade deadline show on Monday, probably a live stream on YouTube for free. You won't need anything special to join it. So just keep an eye out on Twitter and or YouTube. You can go on YouTube, search us up, Fantasy Hockey Podcast, subscribe there. You'll get a little bit of a notification. The video will pop in, whatever YouTube and Google do to get you our videos. And then after that, you'll get Unsustainable Wednesdays as we lead you right into the playoffs. Hopefully right in one of the top 3 spots.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. And there you go. Thank you so much for listening.
Yep. Thanks for listening.